A month and a half into the NFL season, you're probably dealing with several injuries to your starting roster in fantasy football. This can be easily solved by the waiver wire. I mean, look at a guy like Darnold. He's been amazing over the past couple of weeks in the absence of Chuba Hubbard. I'm sure he's won some people's in fantasy matchups. These players could do the exact same thing if they're given the chance. It's not a 100% hit rate or anything, but there's always a chance you could find a multi-week starter like Darnold in a group of players like this. If you're lucky, these players can help guide you to the fantasy football playoff. That's how impactful the waiver wire can be from week to week in the fantasy football season. Today we're going to be breaking down 4 players I think have to be priority waiver ads for you, and these guys could help you in the middle of your regular season while you're trying to gear up for the playoffs. Some of the players on this list may just be a spot start, but there may be some who last for a while, and I'm particularly excited about the first couple. We're going to start off with Sam Darnold, quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, who signed a 3-year $100.5 million deal with the team in free agency back in March. Right now he's only rostered in 23.1 of ESPN Fantasy League, so he's going to be available pretty much everywhere. And over the past couple of weeks, he's been highly productive, especially in fantasy football. In weeks 5 and 6 combined, he's passed for a total of 6 passing touchdowns and just 1 interception, and he's passed for over 200 passing yards in every single game but 1 so far this year. The Seahawks passing offense has proven to be very valuable for fantasy, as wide receiver Jackson Smith-Njigba is currently one of the best wide receivers in all of fantasy football, and a tight end on this team is going to make an appearance later on this list. Speaking of JSN, he's been such a great consistent receiving threat for Sam Darnold to throw to. They've been on the same page, they look totally in sync, and the team's win against Jacksonville, and it looks like Smith-Njigba is breaking out as one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. He's breaking into that top 5 territory, and that's going to be extremely helpful for Sam Darnold. It's always a good idea to have the quarterback of a receiver who's absolutely going off, so I think Sam Darnold's going to seriously benefit from having JSN in his corner over the rest of the season. And that yardage output is going to give him a really nice floor every week. I think Seattle's improved downfield passing game is going to really bring a nice boost to Darnold's fantasy value, and he's a really good quarterback too, and plug-and-play quarterback if you need him to start heading forward. I think he's going to give you a consistent number of points, especially in those deeper leagues, and he's having a really nice 2025 season with the Seahawks after a great 2024 season in Minnesota. Overall, I've been just super impressed with this Seahawks offense, especially in the passing game. I think Darnold's going to continue to produce at a high level, and the fact that he's available in over 75% of ESPN fantasy leagues is a little wild to me. He and Jason look like one of the best duos in football as far as quarterbacks and wide receivers go. I'm super excited to see how far this Seattle Seahawks team can go in 2025. So there's nothing wrong with throwing Sam Darnold onto the end of your bench to see if he can start a couple weeks down the road, maybe even next week. I could easily see Darnold finishing as a top 15 quarterback this year. It's just a matter of how the games fall. But with weapons like Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp, and AJ Barner at his disposal, I think it's entirely within the realm of possibility. Next time we're going to move on to maybe my highest priority ad of the week, and that's Kimani Vidal. He's currently only owned in 27.1% of ESPN leagues. It's pretty easy to see why he is such a high priority ad. After week 5, rookie running back phenom Omarion Hampton landed on injured reserve with an ankle injury, and it's only been 1 week, but it looks like Kimani Vidal is going to be the workhorse in his stead. We weren't really sure how the split between Hassan Haskins and Vidal was going to work out, but it's pretty clear now who's going to get the touches, and with Hampton probably out at least another month, Vidal's value is pretty safe going forward. In week 6, the second-year running back took 18 carries for 124 rushing yards. If that wasn't enough, he also took in 3 receptions for 14 yards and a receiving touchdown. The Chargers are quite clearly prepared to lean on him in this rushing attack and also give the ball to him as a receiver, and he definitely outperformed Hassan Haskins, the other running back in this backfield, who only received 6 touches. So going forward, barring some insane change of workload, Vidal should be a great fantasy piece. If you have a good priority on waivers or are willing to put a ton of fab dollars on him, I think he's probably the number 1 target. I mean, 21 touches in his first career start. Those are insane numbers in terms of volume, and I think he's going to stay pretty fantasy relevant until Hampton returns. He's still widely available in most leagues, and I think he's going to have a great couple weeks. And who knows, maybe the next few games are going to be the difference between you making the playoffs or sitting in the consolation bracket. Vidal could completely change that for the better. For at least a couple weeks, he could be that PPR monster, maybe even a workhorse running back for your fantasy team, and he could be one of the highest upside waiver pickups of the entire season when it's all said and done. I'll say it one more time, he should be your number 1 target. While he's not the most long-term player on the list in terms of value, maybe you could trade him closer when Omarion Hampton's going to return. That way you can capitalize on the points for a couple weeks and then capitalize on his value whenever his time's running out as the starter. Overall, there's just no harm in picking him up, and if he's going to get volume and have efficiency like this, he's absolutely worth starting. Next up, we have Jefferson, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. He's only rostered in 0.2% of ESPN fantasy leagues, so he's going to be available literally everywhere. One of the main reasons he's on here is because Calvin Ridley, his teammate, suffered a hamstring injury in the Titans' loss against the Raiders. He didn't end up returning to the game, and that could mean plenty of things. If Ridley were to miss time, I think Jefferson's going to be one of the hottest targets in this offense, and even if Ridley doesn't miss time, I think Jefferson's going to get some volume going forward. There's no telling what's going to happen now that Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan has been fired, so the whole structure of this offense could change entirely. Maybe Van Jefferson sees a couple more targets going his way than usual, but after catching 4 of his 6 targets on Sunday for 75 yards, I think he could be a more regular part of the game plan. He has plenty of time to develop a rapport with rookie quarterback Cam Ward, and if this offense improves under an interim head coach, which we don't really know if it will, but if it does, Van Jefferson could get a little bit more value, and I guarantee no one else will be going after him in your leagues. So he's the definition of a high upside, low risk pickup. Cam Ward's going to be a great quarterback, maybe not this year, but he's got a rocket arm who can zip the ball downfield into any tight window. If Van Jefferson can emerge as a deep threat in this offense, that could benefit him a ton. Again, he has a little bit of standalone value if Ridley doesn't miss time, but if Ridley does, then he has the chance to be a pretty good player. And right now this Titans offense is looking for answers, maybe he's the one. Again, he's probably one of the most low-key players I'm targeting, and you could probably even wait a week to pick him up. But I think stashing him on the end of your bench is a solid idea because I think he will be involved. He's been a veteran wide receiver in this league for a while now, but again, this guy's going to cost you nothing, and I think his ceiling really is a top 30 wide receiver on the season, but of course that's if everything breaks his way. But I'm not going to lie, kind of reminded me of Rams Van Jefferson from a couple years ago. It's also worth noting that this was a pretty significant boost in volume for Jefferson. He had 4 targets all year before Sunday, so maybe they've unlocked something with him. Again, maybe I'm reaching, it's probably nothing, but just take a chance. Finally, we have tight end A.J. Barner, another piece of the Seahawks passing offense. He's only owned in 10.1% of ESPN fantasy leagues. Barner's a second-year tight end for the Seattle Seahawks, but he's quickly working his way up the depth chart to be their tight end 1. He's proven himself as a great red zone weapon. Through 23 career games, he has 8 receiving touchdowns, and he's been a pretty consistent contributor in Seattle's offense over the past couple of weeks. He has 13 targets over the past 3 weeks, and at the tight end position, you can't really afford to be picky. It's a very volatile group of guys, and his yardage also has increased over each of the past 4 weeks. He got all 3 of his targets for 71 receiving yards on Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that included a massive 61-yard gain in the middle of that game. He could be one of Darnold's favorite targets going forward. He already has some solid consistency over the past couple of games, but now you have that ability for a big play threat. He could be a decent tight end. And again, at the tight end position, there's not a ton to choose from. Sometimes you're just looking to start a guy to see if he can put a decent week together. And Barner already has 205 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year. Those are some pretty solid numbers for a tight end that's been working his way in and out of the offense. He's been pretty consistent too. He's caught all but 2 targets so far this year. And outside of Jackson Smith and Jigba, Seattle doesn't really have that clear-cut number 2 target. I think at the tight end position, Barner could be a really good threat. If he gets more volume, he could absolutely continue to be fantasy relevant, not to mention his touchdown numbers. But his ability to get into the end zone is something that gives him a lot of value. Obviously, yes, there's touchdown dependency there, but again, you cannot afford to be picky. If he has a couple big weeks, he could really contribute to your fantasy season overall, and as his yardage continues to go up, he can be very profitable for your lineup. If your current tight end is underperforming, adding Barner to at least your bench could be a very high upside move. And there's a reason I have Sam Darnold on this list as well. I trust the Seahawks passing offense, and I think Barner could be a really low-risk, high-reward pickup. There's really not a ton of competition for him to become this tight end 1. He's been contributing over the past 2 seasons, and it's obvious he now has a role in the team. And it looks like Barner is the guy to take a gamble on after week 6. Overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fantasy advice like this for the rest of the season. We could even help you win your championship. That's all I got for you guys. I'm Joe, and this is Fantasy Trading Room.